Thank you very much for coming. My name is Carly. I'm the Program Director at Interactive Ontario. We are the host of iLunch. It's our monthly Lunch and Learn series on different topics in interactive digital media. So before we get started, I would like to say a big thank you to our presenting partners, Ontario Creates and the Canada Media Fund, who make the series possible. And as well today we have, as an event partner, the Trade Commissioner Service under Global Affairs Canada. So if you are a Canadian company looking to export, looking for information on other markets, help connections, the Trade Commissioner Service can help you. So if you'd like a connection to them.
Today, Felipe Morel from Digitsfilm and Laura Gonzalez from Factor Cloud.
Way to find the financing we're looking for.
Now I would like to introduce our speaker today, Shelley Coultish. She is the Deputy Director, Portfolio Management and a CMF Program Administrator at Telefilm Canada, and she's here today to tell us all about their international co-production incentives. So, Shelley, thank you. Down. So, so all the and the last activity. And if you had like a portal, like something similar to a Netflix, that you're just literally pushing a button and watching content, that would not be eligible either for this fund because it would not have interactivity.
So it has to have some sort of significant interactivity. We also added a couple years ago that it could be, rather than and so I think our Canadian digital media funds, the rules say 75% of the budget must be spent on Canadian costs and 25% can be foreign. So the same thing applies if you're doing a co-production, which means that the Canadians could cover 25% foreign costs. So there could be some foreign costs within the Canadian side of the budget. So that would, be a way to put some more costs to the Canadian side. So if that wasn't complicated enough, let's move on to our international incentives. So we have many of these. Some of them I don't have represented because they haven't renewed yet, but these are the ones we currently have this year, and we're getting more every day. We're apparently going to launch one with Mexico very, very soon. At the moment, the current ones we have are with the Danish Film Institute, the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland, Northern Ireland Screen, Jerusalem Development Authority, New Zealand On Air, Pro Imaginist Colombia, Median Board Berlin Brandenburg, Film Fund Luxembourg, and Wallimage in Belgium. So some of these are very specific, and they're like, it's for exactly this. And then some of them are very wide and broad, and they accept anything. So The Danish Film Institute, for example, is co-development for innovative digital media projects only. And then you have ones like the Jerusalem one, which was co-development, co-production, television, or digital media. And it was basically anything and everything. So it kind of depends, like we structure our rules based on what the other organization is interested in and what their government's mandate is. So the Colombian one is closed for the year, unfortunately, but it will probably get renewed. But we just made decisions in September, and the Colombian one specifically, and we've had it for 2 years now, it was co-development for digital media, I believe. I don't think television was allowed, but I'd have to check. They're all so specific that these are the one funds that I don't memorize the guidelines because they keep making new ones, and so when people call me about them, I literally open the guidelines and read them aloud over the phone so I can figure it out with the client. But essentially, yeah, ProImagine definitely was co-development, and we funded, I believe this year we funded mostly web series and a couple of VR projects. But yeah, they're looking for VR, AR, web series, that sort of thing. And yeah, so every year things change. They get new countries. Like I said, I hear Mexico is coming up, and Scotland also, and probably more. These are the only ones that don't necessarily close in December. We have ones that will pop up in January too. So what I would suggest is if you're interested in these ones, to sign up for CMF email updates, and you'll get a press release every time they open a new one. But the Colombian one, like I said, is closed for this year, but we have a good relationship with them. It's been going very well for the last 2 years, so I would guess that we will probably renew it for next year, but we probably won't know until the spring of 2019. How do you find a co-producer? Well, I mean, you know, other than networking and going to events and conferences, we opened a little section on our website called the Find a Co-Producer, and I'll point you to where it actually is on the website after this. Essentially, you can sign up and you can check off which countries are you interested in finding a co-producer, and like you sign up, you say what your company does and what the contact is to get a hold of you, and if somebody's interested, they'll find you in the database and contact you. Or if you're interested in somebody that you see in the database, you can contact them through their contact information link. Right now, though, the only thing is you can't pick any country. It's limited to there's checkboxes only for the international incentives that we have. So if you wanted to say, I'm interested in finding someone in Japan, you wouldn't be able to because we don't have an incentive with Japan. So there's only checkboxes for the countries we currently have funds with. But we open this, you know, as a way to help producers find each other. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just highlight a few projects that we funded so you can kind of see the sort of things that have been picked. If you want to find more, I'll show you a website to look at the end. But here's one. So generally in co-development funds, we don't release information on the project because it's early and we protect the producer's IP, so we only publish a description when it's in production. But this is one that actually got development money from us and then went and produced it themselves and launched it online, so it's public. So I thought I would highlight it because since the Colombian Fund is mostly co-development, I can't talk about a lot of the projects, but I can talk about this one because it exists on iTunes and Google Play. It was launched last year. And the Canadian producer is an animation company out of Kelowna, BC, Saturn Animation, and the Colombian producer was Signos Studio SAS. And essentially it was like a children's story ebook, like interactive ebook, and it was the story of a Colombian condor and a Canadian beaver. Together they overcome a host of obstacles and fend off the machinations of their enemies. Yeah, so it was a very cute kid's story, and it was a really nice little interactive storybook that you could get as an app, and you can buy further stories through in-app purchases and stuff, and it's a very nice project. And I believe that must be the condor. So, so here's another one. Here's an example that I thought was interesting. So this is a production project that we funded through our Jerusalem Film Fund incentive, but they also then structured it with that international framework structure and applied also to the Production Innovation Fund for our experimental fund. So they got funding from CMF, funding from JFF, and then funding from CMF again. So they would have had to put in, they got picked for the Jerusalem incentive first, and then they put in another application to get more money from the Innovation Fund, and they got selected by our jury. So essentially what this is a VR experience at the, I believe it's at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, and they show the experience of a Jewish person, a Christian person, and a Muslim person. So it's to kind of have a VR experience of the different religions that are in that spiritual part of the world. And they launched a hot docs. I wonder whether this will work if I try to show you the video. They had a demo video that they showed at Hot Docs that you can actually spin around and look at it in 360. Is that good? Is this going to work? Oh, yes, it will. I don't know if the sound is on for this. Is this working? Oh, yeah. Oh, there was something. Okay. I'm not sure if the sound's going to work, but yeah, you can kind of put your clicker here and like move it around and see all the different angles of where you're at and stuff. I don't think the full project has launched yet, but this is the teaser. So let me just see if I can get back into my presentation. Is this going to work? Ah, yes. Okay. Oh, I went to the, yeah, so it went to the next slide. So then the last one I was just going to show is one that we funded. We used to have an incentive with Screen Australia. It didn't get renewed, but you know, government mandates change, so some of the funds don't come back all the time. But this one won some awards, and it was Bradfield Narrative Designs in Canada and Mesbury's Design in Australia. It was called Inanimate Alice Perpetual Nomads. And it's basically a interactive virtual reality fiction series about, it's an educational story about a young woman who, I don't remember exactly what she does, but anyways, but that was one of the ones, and that one won some awards at the Reimagine Education Awards. And then there's many more, and I'll show you where to find them. I'll just skip this slide for a second. So we have a site called Ion Canada, and this is our promotional website that we partner with Telefilm on. And so if you go on Ion Canada and you limit it to digital media, it doesn't tell you exactly which ones are international incentive ones, but all the digital media projects are generally either, if you notice it's for a TV show, it's from our Convergent Broadcaster-driven fund. The experimental projects are all up there, and the international incentive projects. It's in fact, we actually asked the producers to submit to the Ion Canada website for all of the projects that we fund, so that they're all up there. The one thing I have noticed, though, if you do go on it and you want to look at some examples, because they all have examples of projects, and there's video, it says if it won awards, it says who the producer is, you get a little more information. So you can kind of see what we've been selecting. The one thing I have noticed that I have yet to tell them is that they have it sorted, so there's like 300 pages of things to look at, and they have it sorted from oldest to newest, so you have to hit the double arrow to go to the end and go backwards. Otherwise, you're looking at projects from 8 years ago, so I'm going to get them to fix that, but just so you know, don't go from one to the end, go from the end back. So otherwise, yeah, it's kind of 8-year-old projects are not as relevant to look at now. The other thing that you might want to look at is our CMF Trends Blog. They do a lot of research studies and papers and stuff, and they publish them here. And some of them are very interesting and, you know, can give you ideas and help you, like, you know, look at things that you're looking into doing. So it's always a handy place to look for information. And then lastly, this is my contact information. So my phone number, my email address, and I should explain how Telefilm and CMF work together. So I'm at Telefilm, but I administer the CMF. And the reason for that is just that CMF is its own organization, but they are mostly about research and policy writing and government relations. But Telefilm has their own feature film funds, but Telefilm administer all of CMF's programs. So if you want to ask questions about our programs, you call Telefilm, you don't call the CMF directly. It's a little kind of strange, but it's how it works. And yeah, so any questions you have, you can put in pre-application consultations through our portal. I'll show you where that is. Let me see. I'm going to get out of this and go to the website. See if I can find it. No. Sorry, Carly, I'm not really great with a Mac. Oh, is it?
It's in Chrome.
Oh, it's in Chrome. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh, here's the Holy City. I'll take that away. Okay, so, all right. So this is kind of a squashed version of the website right now. But so essentially, though, you want to find the sidebar. When you open it up on a regular browser, it's a little bigger and you can find things easier. But programs and deadlines, obviously. Ooh, whoops. Okay. So, oh my gosh, sorry. I'm so bad with the trackpads, and oh my goodness. Okay, there we go. So, programs and deadlines. So, the how to apply, that will take you to the Telefilm website to sign up for our online portal is called Dialogue. So anyone can sign up for Dialogue. You don't have to be Canadian. You can sign up for Dialogue. You do have to be Canadian to apply through Dialogue. So, I mean, if you're going to partner with a Canadian partner to do one of these co-productions and you want to find out whether or not your project's eligible and you'd like to submit a pre-application consultation, it would probably be better to get them to do it, because if you signed up for a Dialogue account and you're not Canadian, you're never going to use it anyways, because how our international incentives work is the Canadian applies to us, and then the non-Canadian producer applies to their own organization. So, for example, if you're going to do the one with Pro Imaginis Colombia, you have to submit 2 applications, one to them and one to us. And then we do our decisions together, and they get back to you and we get back to the Canadian producer. But yeah, so they would hit this how to apply button and it would take them through some steps. And because Telefilm administers the fund, you will eventually end up on the Telefilm website to sign up, not CMF. But so, again, a little confusing, but you have to sign up for the online portal on Telefilm because CMF doesn't have one. If you want to know about the programs, there's a lot. So there's a lot of specialty programs that are under the convergence side. The ones that you're interested in are probably under experimental or international incentives. So in order to find that framework, I'll just show you where that is. So you would go to experimental, you would pick any of these programs, not the accelerator program. That's a very specialized program that gives you money to work with an incubator if you've been selected for production or marketing. But you'd go, let's just pick innovation, for example. And then you can scroll down. You'll see the deadlines. So, as you can see, we had 2 deadlines this year. They're both done, but they're not all selected. And the prototyping deadline's coming up on Tuesday, the second round. We have 2 rounds per year. It's always in April and September for production, and it's always in May and October and November for development or prototyping. Marketing is always on the same day as prototyping. And then, as you scroll down, you find the guidelines. So you can read the guidelines. That will tell you what the jury uses to score the project, like what the scoring grid looks like. The international framework is under reference documents. So some of these things are, you kind of have to remember how to get to them. And it's not going to open for me, of course, because it just doesn't want to. I don't know. Can you do? It's just, I don't know why it doesn't want to open. It's okay, but just know that if you look, oh, there you go, and see, and it just popped open the document. So there's the framework for digital media co-production. These other documents, you don't really need them, but, if you want to read them, go right ahead. And then submitting your application. This is the important part. Submitting your application. So you have a little scrolly thing here, or like a clicky thing here where you can, depending on what one you want. So let's say you want to do prototyping and you need the budget template from us. If you're doing one of the international incentives, you have to go to that section, which we'll go to next. But it's very important to get the checklist for each project that which program you're going to apply for, because it has very specific instructions on how to do it. It tells you, for example, what they want for each document, how you should code it in the system when you're uploading it into Dialogue. And then after the checklist of documents that you have to prepare, there's a whole, 15-page document telling you exactly what we want in each section of Dialogue. So if you're going through Dialogue, filling in the fields, and you think to yourself, what do they want for this section? It's in here. You can find the answer. You can also just call us, but it's in here, so it tells you exactly what we want to know. So that should help you with your application. There's also another apply button to go to Dialogue here, and So yeah, this is just very important to make sure you get your documents from us. Don't make your own documents. Like obviously for the checklist documents you do, but like don't try to create your own budget. Like use our templates because it's really important to do that. Otherwise, it's hard for the jury to score if everything is done differently. And then let's go back and just look at international incentives so that you can see where to find those. So again, under programs and deadlines. So if you want to just see all of our deadlines in one place, you can click application deadlines. If you want to just look at it program by program, though, you can just do that, and it tells you on that page. But so international incentives is here, and scroll down to the section, and then it has them all. So the ones that are currently accepting applications have a little, I mean, they might be closed for this year, but like at the beginning of the year, essentially what they do is they say what it's for. So if you're looking for one to apply to, and you can go, okay, oh, Colombia, it's development and it's digital media. And then you see Ireland, it's development and it's television. So this one's development, production, and it's digital media. And so, yeah, then you can click on the little bullet, and it then gives you more information. It'll give you the guidelines for each specific fund. It'll tell you what the date was of the application, and then there's a checklist specifically for that fund right here. And there's a specific international co-development budget, which will give you the option to code things as Canadian and non-Canadian, so we kind of understand what costs are being covered by which country. And then each of these funds have a little joint signature form that you have to sign on both sides and then upload it into your application. But essentially, this is where they all are. So it's really important to go there and get our documents. And then underneath it, oh yeah, I missed South Africa. We have one with them as well. But underneath it is our Find a Co-Production section. So you scroll about, I don't know, it looks like a third of the way down, and you're there. You can add yourself to the list, or you can do a little search. So you can say, oops, sorry, this is the last thing I'll show you because I think I'm going a little long here. I am from Colombia. I'm interested in working with Canada. Search, and then it should, oh, you can even narrow it down and say digital media. Let's just say both digital medias. And then, oh, sorry, and then you search, and then it filters you based on what you'd like to see. And then so you can start seeing people's names and like their company description, and you scroll through until you find somebody you're interested in talking to, and then you can read more about them, or you can click the link to like talk to them directly. I seem to be getting all the Colombian ones first. I don't see the Canadian ones, but in any case, you can experiment with that, and that's basically sort of a very, very periphery look at where things are on the website. But if you're looking, it's fairly clearly labeled, but I understand it can be hard sometimes to find things. So if you need help, if you want to talk about the guidelines, get more specifics, ask us what we're looking for in certain documents. Ask us if your project is eligible. Any questions, we are happy to take calls and answer your questions. And so I'll just, I guess, if you didn't get my contact information, you can come find me later. I don't have business cards because our phone numbers changed 2 weeks ago, so they fell in order. So, but I can give it to you. So, and that's it. So I'm open to questions.
If you have questions, just put up your hand and I will run over with the mic so that everyone on the live stream can hear as well.
I'm going to put the PowerPoint back up and just put my contact thing up, so if anybody forgot to copy down. Because I actually don't even know what my new phone number is because I haven't memorized it. So.
Hey,
so questions?
I guess I have the mic, so.
Oh, okay. Hi, Tinu.
My name is Tinu. I just have a question about, so the budget that you pointed out there, Shelley, that's the international, there's an international template.
Yes.
For both sides.
Yes.
Of the production. And then you would still fill out the budget template for experimental, let's say, if you're applying for those funds.
Yeah, so right now, the international budget template that's being used, I believe, is, I think it's based off the, no, it is the experimental one, because but I think the production one, if you're doing international co-production, I believe the co-production budget is a convergent digital media budget, which is different from the experimental budget. So it would be nice to have these things harmonized, but they're not really. So you kind of have to plug your numbers into one and then plug your numbers into the other one. But you need to just, if they are different templates, they won't always be, but if they are different templates between the funds that you want to apply to, you do have to put it into both. And then, if you're doing one of the international incentives, sometimes, depending on the funding body, sometimes they use ours and other times they have their own. So I know Colombia used ours, but Denmark wanted the producers to use their own template. So in that case, they didn't put their Danish costs into the Canadian budget. They gave us 2 copies. They gave us the one from Danish Film Institute and the one from CMF. So it can be complicated. So if you're just unclear of what to do, give me a call.
Wow, stereo. Web series, you talked about with digital media web series. Would that cover streaming on Twitch or Caffeine or Mixer or things like that?
So the Web Series Fund has no real rule of exactly where you have to stream it, but essentially, sometimes it's a broadcaster. Sometimes we had some that the CBC would do on cbc.ca, for example, or something like that. And then other times they did it themselves. They had it on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or Instagram or whatever it was meant for. So you can have a broadcast partner that puts it on their website, but you can also do it yourself on whatever platform, as long as it's available to be watched online or on a mobile device.
And if I could just ask a second question, is there any prejudice if you're making multiple applications at the same time for different funds?
You're absolutely allowed to. The thing is, if let's say, you're putting in a bunch of different applications, either for the same fund or for different funds at the same time, and we notice, we might look at the company and go, do they have the capability of actually doing all of these if we select them all? So it's happened that, in the experimental fund, there is a company that got 5 projects in the first round from production, prototyping, and marketing. But they're, and it's public information because we publish who gets funded on the website. They're a huge company owned by Entertainment One, so they have the capability of doing it, so there's no worry there. But if it's like a very small company with 2 people and they put in 10 applications, we might go, so I would always encourage you to just, do what you think, if you were to get selected, could you do them both? And, make sure that you don't spread yourself too thin, because they are big applications to put together. So, pick the ones you really like and focus on those ones.
Any other questions?
Thanks. Hi.
Hello.
Excuse me for a second while I find my tongue.
Mm-hmm.
My question is in the early part of the of your presentation, you mentioned the prototyping funding and stages. What I'm not clear about is what is the prototype? What do you find it as?
So a prototype can be many things. It really depends on what your project is. So since we accept so many different things like games, mobile apps, VR experiences, rich interactive media, software, it really kind of depends on what it is that you're doing. If it's a game, usually it's like somebody will create 10 minutes of the first level or something like that, If it's, I don't know, if it's something else though, it's basically you create a minimum viable product so we can kind of see some functionality that it's, basically just something to show us that you've gotten some of it working, essentially. It's hard to say though exactly what. I mean, games are easy. People tend to do the same things for that, but everything else, it kind of depends what it is. I know with a VR experience, sometimes they want to create 3-dimensional sound, so maybe they'll try and get that part of it working, but they won't be doing the full animation for the actual VR. They might do a few minutes of it just to show us that they can get the sound working or something. But it really depends. If you're ever kind of wondering, am I doing enough, or do I have enough of a prototype to apply for production, you can call us and I can put you in touch with one of our analysts, and they will be able to tell you, because they're all hired for their technical expertise, so they would know.
it's Tinu again.
Hello.
I don't know. This is just a curious thing. Like, do you see, because the framework for digital CoPro is not the same as official treaty co-production, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So do you see Canadians partnering with Americans on digital?
I thought I would. I really thought we would get that a lot, but we have had none. So I will say this: is so the official, so the digital media framework co-production rules. Because we have all these international co-production funds and co-development funds, people tend to go to those ones because then they have a guarantee of if I get the CMF, I get the other fund automatically. So they're going to those more often. And the rules of those international incentives, they have like similar rules, like the copyright split has to be kind of even with what financing is being brought to the table and whatnot. I think we launched that framework, though, for foreign co-productions to apply to the CMF with a Canadian partner about 5 years ago, and I think I've seen outside of the international incentives 3. So not many people are doing it. They're usually going through the international incentives. So Holy City, I brought that up because they got an international incentive, and then they went ahead and applied for the Experimental Production Fund, and they got that. So them and I think 2 other ones over the last 5 years, but most of the time people will go through the incentives because it's a little bit simpler, and they're guaranteed to get the foreign money as well.
Hi, just wondering if there's any kind of overlap or coordination with Ontario and other provinces for funding?
So the CMF is national, so we don't have any like regional targets for the experimental fund. The government basically gave us a mandate for finding innovative projects in the cultural sector and or commercially driven return on investment type projects in the cultural sector. But they didn't say like you have to do this much from the West and this much from Ontario, this much from Quebec. So it kind of just is, who ranks highest is what they get. We do see some double dipping with provincial funds. So, for example, the OMDC has an interactive digital media fund. Usually, like some of the Ontario projects we select in the experimental fund will also get that. Or Creative BC if it's British Columbia or something like that. Not every province has a digital fund, so there's only some provinces that can take advantage of that. Is that what you were asking? Okay.
Hi, it's Kevin Wright. Sorry? I was just curious, did the success or lack of success of previous projects inform the jury in terms of how they make the selections going forward? For example, the Condor was on iTunes. How did it do?
I guess the thing is, if he came back for another project, it would be that producer's responsibility to submit to us numbers that he did for because when they write, so part of the application is to do a marketing and strategic positioning document to talk about how you plan to sell it, what is your revenue stream, how did you come up with your numbers for your sales projections and that sort of thing. So he could say, if he wanted to, if he came back, he could say, hey, I launched this project using your money called the Condor, and here's the sales numbers for it, and I'm doing a similar project, and so based on how the Condor did, I can tell you I'll probably get a similar result. So it's up to them to provide it to us, but they can do that. They can make that argument based on their previous titles that they've shipped. And then just as far as track record goes, though, we actually do have a track record score on the experimental fund projects, and you can get, like, it's out of 3 points, so you can basically get a 1, 2, or a 3, and we will give you a 3 if you've made us our investment back, but otherwise you're going to get a 1 for neutral or a 2 for just they've done several projects and it's gone well. But you can get the highest point if you've made us some money, and we would know that. But we don't always know because, if you don't come to us for production, it's not an investment. If it's prototyping, it's a repayable advance. And if you decide to go into production on your own or with somebody else. And then some of these international incentives are grants. Like the Colombian one was a grant. So he could have made millions of dollars worth of sales and he wouldn't have had to give us anything. It just depends on the funds. They're all different types of money. They're not all grants. So that's also something to mention. And some of them are investments and some of them are advances. So if the producer wants to use his sales numbers as a supporting argument for how well this new project might do, that's a good thing to do. So.
Thank you, Shelley, for your presentation. I just wanted to mention if someone here in the room is interested in working with Colombia or looking for partners in Colombia, our job is to connect with the right people in Colombia. We can take you there to Colombia to meet the right people and like for you to understand what's going on down there in the audiovisual market and animation. So if anyone is interested in working with Colombia, we can open the doors for you and talk to you a little bit more about it. We have worked very much with Proimágenes Colombia. We work very tight with them. So just to mention that, and thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Actually, Shelley, I have a quick question.
Okay.
You mentioned grants on one side for the Colombian, and you're an equity partner.
Oh, sorry. So what I meant was the specific co-development digital media fund with Proimágenes Colombia. It was a grant all around. So CMF was a grant. Colombian money was a grant. Some of the programs are investments. Some of them are repayable advances. It depends on the program. So with the Experimental Innovation and Commercial Fund and the Web Series Fund, all the production money is an investment. So we get part of recoupment of the sales. Development money for CMF is usually a repayable advance, which is only repayable if you go into production. So if you prototype something and then you decide it's not going to do well and you don't want to do it and you just close the project down, you don't actually owe us any money back at all. I would say about half of the international incentives are just grants, so they're not repayable at all. Some of them do involve some sort of recoupment, but it's different from the experimental fund. So for example, in the New Zealand one, they want 10% of all ancillary rights sales. What does that even mean? I don't know, so, but, so we, it says that there is repayable if they make ancillary products and sell them, but some of them don't, so we don't get any money either. And then like the Jerusalem one, though, it is exactly like experimental. It was an investment and we get part of sales. So they're all over the place because we kind of have to work with the funding body in the other country as to what they would like to do. And if they want it to be a grant, the CMF will usually agree to that. If they want it to be an investment, same thing. So you just have to look at the guidelines, or if you can't tell, it's usually pretty clear. It's usually on the first page of the guidelines with these international funds. But if you need any help kind of figuring it out, always give me a call. So.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Shelley for the presentation, all the information. Thank you so much. As well, thank you to our presenting partners, Ontario Creates and the Canada Media Fund, who make iLunch possible. And as I mentioned, our event partner, the Trade Commissioner Service. If you'd like a connection to them, just let me know. As well, I wanted to mention that if you do want to sort of dive deeper into some more interactive digital media and business topics, next week we have our iVentures conference happening at the Design Exchange, and we will look at things like narrative design, and we have a panel with some pro gamers, so a chance to sort of ask gamers how you as a digital media creator could work with them. All sorts of great things. We will be talking about esports. We'll be talking about how Assassin's Creed is used in classrooms and museums. So lots of great topics, lots of great networking. So if you visit iventures.digital, you can get tickets there still, and hopefully we'll see you on Tuesday and Wednesday next week. Thank you, everyone.